One of my favourites is biggest beginner's mistakes I've seen in property development. See them so many times, it's incredible. Development process, as we know, is complicated, and I've seen some really intelligent people from all walks of life who've made money in business or through successful careers. They come and try and be property developers and they lose money. And there's an old saying, how do you make $1 million out of property? The answer, of course, is you start with a few million. And that's very true if you don't know what you're doing. The first thing I noticed is people don't have a strategy. Just go out and buy something that looks like a development site. They don't understand about the planning laws, they don't understand about conservation areas, and they get led astray by an estate agent that they trust or someone else that thinks they know what they're doing. And very often they get it completely wrong and they get their fingers burnt, and you can lose money very, very quickly. The next point is they've paid too much. Very, very often I've seen this. I'm a great believer in you make your profit when you buy the land or you buy the property or you option it. That's where your profit is, not when you sell it. Market knowledge and good negotiating skills are critical to making good profit out of property. Very, very important. The next point is poor due diligence. Due diligence means checking out, doing your research into planning laws in the local area, what the GDV of the development's likely to be, how much the building costs are likely to be. Talking to neighbours, that's quite useful as well, because you can find out a lot about what's under the ground there. So if you talk to a neighbour and says, God, you should come back here in the winter, it's all flooded out, you realise there's a problem. It might be a clay seam or something like that, which may mean that your building costs could be a lot greater. It's important to have a comprehensive sort of due diligence checklist, which we'll give you in a later lesson, which goes through some of the key points you need to look at. The fourth point is poor feasibility research. It's linked to the point previously. It's just going into more detail, doing accurate figures before you purchase a property. You can't always tell exactly what something's going to be worth. The market changes. I've had sometimes 3 different agents look at a property and their values might be 30% apart, believe it or not, with one sort of sitting in the middle, one at the high end and one at the low end. And you think, well, what am I actually going to get? Well, that's part of the judgment you use as a property developer. You can then go and find out from mortgage brokers, find out from surveyors and valuers what they're likely to value your property, your final property at, and look at the land registry for true figures of what things have actually sold for recently as well. That's key. Fifth point is a bad tax structure. I've mentioned before about this. If you're developing yourself, you don't want to be caught out and then be treated by the Inland Revenue as a property trader, because you'll end up paying potentially income tax and national insurance on your developments on the profit side. So you either set yourself as a limited company or a property partnership with someone, such as your wife or your husband, or a friend or a builder or whoever it is. That's the best way of doing it. You can occasionally do the odd build if you're going to live in it, and I mean genuinely live in it, rather than try and say you're living in it, so you avoid tax. And if you are doing that and it's your principal primary residence, then yes, you don't pay tax on any profit you make on your principal primary residence. That's always been the case, and hopefully always will be. But they are tightening up on these sort of issues. Again, we'll look at tax in greater detail at a later date, and we'll bring in a couple of tax specialists and an accountant for that. The sixth point is financing issues. You'd be amazed how many times I've seen people get caught. They've gone out and borrowed money, maybe from a bank initially to start a development. Then they've needed more money because they got their costings wrong, so they've had to go and get what's called mezzanine finance in, which can be horrendously expensive because it's risky for the lender. They take a second charge rather than the first charge the bank will have. And then interest rates might go up. You might not be able to sell the property for the price you thought you could. It's just, I've seen so many properties that have been repossessed. They haven't even been finished. Loads of them around, especially at the tail end of a recession. Happens quite frequently. There are some good opportunities though then, especially if the properties haven't got building regs or any guarantee. You can go in and pick them up for next to nothing because they have no value. Hardly any value anyhow. The next point is poor timing. if you get in at the wrong, if you pay too much, so when the market's booming, you get carried away and pay too much for land and outbid everyone else, thinking you're onto a sure winner, and then the market turns against you, you're going to get caught with a cold. It's the old saying, you don't know who's swimming naked until the tide goes out. That's especially true with people that get their timing wrong. And there are opportunities when there's a downturn, when property prices fall. You just want to be in the right place then and understand when they're likely to be falling and make sure you're in cash rather than stock to pick things up. Very important. And that's kind of leads on to overconfidence and arrogance. I see this so many times with beginners who have been successful elsewhere in business that come in and think they know what they're doing. And a lot of people keep an eye out. A lot of agents and other developers keep a lookout for people coming into the market who are newbies, as they say, and they'll try and flip them on property they can't make money out of, sites that are difficult to build. Oh, it's just incredible. They see you coming. They know what you don't know very often, and it can be a number of different things. And what you have to realize in this game is you have very, very few friends. Everyone's out to make money, and there's such huge amounts of money at stake. Absolutely, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds. People will do you over to make money. It's as simple as that. So those are some of the biggest mistakes I've seen beginners make, and I hope you're on guard to protect yourself against them. Good luck.